Teachers, what is the saddest thing you found out about a student? I was 23 and doing my student teaching at Lincoln Middle School when I met Damian Williams. Every teacher in that building knew his name, and not for good reasons. Damian was that kid, the one who disrupted every class, started fights in the hallway, and had a permanent seat outside the principal's office. By November, I'd heard countless stories about Damian from the other teachers in the faculty lounge. Mrs. Rodriguez would shake her head talking about how he'd thrown a textbook across her English classroom. Mr. Patterson complained about Damian sleeping through his history lessons or just walking out mid-lecture. The consensus was that Damian was a lost cause, a troublemaker who didn't want to be helped. But here's the thing, I was the only male teacher Damian had that year, and for whatever reason, he acted completely different in my 7th grade math class. He still struggled with the work and had attitude problems, but he wasn't disruptive. He'd actually participate sometimes, cracking jokes that were genuinely funny rather than mean-spirited. About a month into my placement, I pulled Damian aside after class. Look, I know you're capable of more than you're showing me. How about we make a deal? You complete at least 50% of each assignment, put in genuine effort, and I'll give you full credit for the work. Damian looked at me suspiciously. Why would you do that? Because I think you're smarter than your grades show, and sometimes people just need someone to meet them halfway. He agreed, and for the next few weeks, things were going well. Damian was turning in work, participating in class discussions, even helping other students with problems he understood. I was starting to feel like maybe I was actually reaching him. Then he disappeared for an entire week. Monday came and went, no Damian. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, still nothing. The other teachers weren't surprised. He probably just decided to skip, Mrs. Rodriguez said. Kids like that don't stick with anything. But something felt wrong to me. Damian had been doing better, seemed engaged, was actually trying. I decided to call his home number that Friday after school. An elderly woman answered, his grandmother, Betty Williams. When I explained who I was and that Damian had been absent all week, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. Oh, honey, she said, and I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. His mama showed up on Sunday night. Betty explained the situation to me, and it broke my heart. Damian's mother was what she called a street wanderer, addicted to drugs, homeless most of the time, appearing at their door maybe twice a year without warning. His father had been in prison for the past 3 years on drug charges. Betty was raising Damian on her fixed income, doing her best but struggling with her own health problems. When his mama shows up, that boy won't leave her side, Betty told me. He's so scared she's gonna disappear again that he sits by the front door all night just watching. He don't sleep, don't eat much, just guards that door like his life depends on it. The reason Betty knew to tell me all this was because Damian had returned to school that very day, Friday, and she knew why. He fell asleep at the door sometime Thursday night. When he woke up this morning, she was gone. Again. That's why he came to school today. He always does after she leaves. When Damian walked into my classroom that Friday afternoon, I barely recognized him. The dark circles under his eyes were so pronounced they looked like bruises. His clothes were wrinkled like he'd slept in them, which I now knew he basically had. He moved like he was walking underwater, completely exhausted. Take a seat wherever you're comfortable, I told him quietly. You don't have to do any work today. Damian slumped into his usual desk and just put his head down. Within minutes, he was asleep. The other students noticed but didn't say anything. Middle schoolers can be cruel, but they're also surprisingly perceptive about real pain. Isabella Martinez, who everyone called the class mom because she was always looking out for other students, quietly got up and placed her cardigan over Damian's shoulders so he could use it as a pillow. She didn't make a big deal about it, just did it and sat back down. I let Damian sleep through the entire class period. Hell, I would have let him sleep all day if he needed to. Something changed after that week. Damian threw himself into his work with an intensity that surprised me. He'd complete entire assignments instead of just the 50% we'd agreed on. He'd stay after class to ask questions about problems he didn't understand. He helped other students without being asked. It was like he was trying to prove something, or maybe just grateful to have somewhere stable to focus his energy. The hardest part came in December when I had to tell my students that my student teaching placement was ending. Most of them were happy for me. They knew I was excited to start my own classroom. But when I told Damian privately after class, he started crying. You're the first teacher who ever believed I was smart, he said through tears. What if the next one thinks I'm just a troublemaker again? I wanted to promise him that wouldn't happen, but I couldn't. What I could promise was that he'd proven to himself that he was capable of more than anyone expected. That was 8 years ago. I think about Damian often, especially when I encounter students who remind me of him. I hope he found other teachers who saw his potential. I hope Betty is still able to care for him. Most of all, I hope he learned that his worth isn't determined by whether his mother stays or goes, but by the incredible strength he showed every time he walked back through those school doors.